Pushing through the door, the two girls find Bess standing on the other side, trembling with fear in the shadowy room, her wide eyes fixed on the wall adjacent to the assayer's office. "What's wrong?" George cries. "Why'd you scream like that?" Andre comes bursting through the door behind them as Bess points a trembling finger towards the wall near the cell area. "Someone's in that wall," she whispers. "What do you mean?" Nancy asks, keeping her voice low and soothing. "Tell us what happened." The Wallaces and the Kreiders crowd into the room behind Andre as, calming down, Bess tells her story. "I was in the cell, looking at all the names, when I heard this, scraping coming from the wall." She hesitates, then steps over to the wall and points. "Right here. So I pried back this board, and when I looked," her voice drops back down to a whisper, "I saw a face. Eyes were looking right at me." The onlookers exchange looks of apprehension, but this only makes Nancy more determined to discover an explanation. She kneels in front of the broken board and starts to pry it upwards. "I'm afraid I'm going to break it," she says, glancing at the group now clustered behind her. "Go ahead, do it." Chet has muscled his way to the front of the onlookers. "'Cause if you don't, I will." Nancy pushes up on the board until, finally, it snaps off. But when she peers into the hole, she catches her breath and jumps back reflexively. The onlookers do likewise. A face stares back at them with wide, frozen eyes. Recovering, Nancy reaches into the hole, feels around, and slowly extricates something sandwiched between the two adjacent walls. "It's a doll," she murmurs. The onlookers bend in close as she examines it. While its head, neck, and lower arms are made of pale, unglazed porcelain, the rest of the doll is made of stuffing-filled fabric. Some 20 inches tall, it wears a long, decaying red dress, and its dark, wiry hair is laced with cobwebs. A large crack snaking down its face, and its overly large eyes and dark brows give the doll a decidedly sinister appearance.
Mama!
Now more curious than frightened, Bess takes the doll from Nancy, smoothing out its clothes as she peers at it. "What was it doing in the wall?" "Somebody obviously put it there," Dallas Kreider interjects. "Who?" his wife wonders. "The sheriff?" "More likely some tourist with a weird sense of humor," says Jim Wallace. Bess shakes her head. "No, this doll is definitely from the 19th century. "What kind of sheriff goes sealing dolls up in walls?" Jim scoffs. "Maybe it did something wrong," Chet laughs. But his smile fades as he, like everyone else, becomes increasingly disturbed by the strange look on the doll's face. "Or maybe the sheriff didn't know it was there," Dallas posits solemnly. "Maybe somebody put it there as a jinx." Everyone grows silent as they consider this possibility. "This town had 7 sheriffs in its 11 years of existence," Andre observes quietly, "and all of them died on the job. Every single one." The others look at him, wondering who he is. "I'm Andre Ferris," he explains. "History buff." "There is something unnerving about that thing," Bonnie Kreider remarks. "Something almost evil." "Maybe you should just put it back," Jim offers, trying not to sound as ill at ease as he feels. "Sounds like a plan to me," Dallas concurs. "No. I found it, and I'm going to keep it." Adamant, Bess turns to Chet. "That's okay, isn't it? I mean, if I leave it here, someone else will just take it eventually." "Why do you want to keep it?" George grimaces. "Dolls in general are bad enough, but that one is just freaky. It's an antique." "What about those noises you heard?" Dallas Kreider asks, regarding the doll warily. Bess ponders this, but only briefly. "I don't know. You saw how it was wedged in there. Maybe the vibrations from people tromping around in here caused it to move or something." She sighs impatiently. "Look, all I know is I'm keeping it." Finally, Chet shrugs. "Fine by me." Then he looks at his watch. "We should be heading back." As the rest of the group files out the door, Nancy replaces the board as best she can. Standing up, she addresses her friend. "You're sure you want to keep it? It could be valuable," Bess argues. Then, her tone softening, she adds, "Besides, it probably used to be the joy of some brave little pioneer girl's life. And now look at it, all beat up and forgotten. I feel sorry for it." George smiles knowingly. "You just like the idea of having a doll to play with again." "Okay, that too." The girls return to their horses and discover that Andre has been asked to accompany the group. No, they discover that Andre has asked to accompany the group back to Shadow Ranch. "Just want to see the facilities," he explains as he reins his horse in line behind Jim. "Do a little comparison shopping." Nancy and George swing into their saddles as Bess carefully pushes the doll into her saddlebag as far as it will go. Then she, too, mounts up. But almost immediately her normally placid horse begins to move about restlessly beneath her, stepping first forward, then backwards, refusing to stand still. "Stop it, pal," Bess scolds, tugging on the reins. "What's gotten into you?" "Everybody aboard?" calls Chet, checking the line of horses behind him. He frowns when he sees Bess struggling to pull her horse into line. "Maybe you and pal should ride up here behind me." "Good idea," she says worriedly. She neck reins her mount to the left and taps her heels against his side. But as soon as he's clear of the horse in front of him, he bolts forward. He takes 3 strides, then immediately throws his head down and bucks. Bess immediately flies out of the saddle. "Bess!" George screams. Chet jumps off his horse and rushes over to her as the rest of the group looks on, stunned. She sits up as he crouches beside her. "You all right, cowgirl?" "I'm fine," she mutters, getting to her feet. Her eyes light on Pal, who took off at a gallop. Once she was off his back, and Pal is now running across the desert well on his way back to the ranch. Fighting back tears, she asks Chet softly, "Why did he do that?" He sighs and shakes his head. "Don't rightly know. Ain't like him, that's for sure. Come on, you can ride behind me." As she follows him to his horse, George calls worriedly to her friend. "Are you okay, Bess?" She nods and offers the group a forced smile. "Just thought you guys could use a little entertainment." "Hey, Bess?" She stops and sees that Nancy is pointing at something on the ground behind her. She turns. The doll is sprawled face up amid a snare of sagebrush, its unseeing eyes gazing straight into the sun. Bess untangles it carefully, then carries it over to Chet. Already on his horse, she tucks the doll into his saddlebag. "Sure hope none of the boys see this." Then he extends his arm. "My lips are sealed," Dave says with a grin. "For the time being." "Very funny. Come on, Bess. Put your foot in the stirrup and I'll swing you up." She looks at him, then glances fearfully at his horse, and losing her nerve, backs away. "I'm going to walk." No matter how hard Chet, Nancy, George, or anyone else tries to talk her out of it, she steadfastly refuses to ride back to the ranch. As the line of horses finally winds its way out of Dry Creek, Bess brings up the rear on foot. "Wait!" Grimacing with discomfort, Bess limps up the line of horses to Chet. "I'm ready to ride now. These boots are killing me." Chet swings her up behind him, and soon the group is on its way once again. When they reach the ranch, Tex is waiting at the gate. He scowls as he opens it. "What happened?" he rasps, eyeing Bess as she and Chet ride past. "Pal bucked her off," Chet answers. "Pal don't buck people off." "Well, he did today." As Nancy dismounts, she's relieved to see Pal in the corral, with the other horses, calmly dozing in the sun as if he'd been there all afternoon. She and George untack their horses and help the other guests do the same. Then they head to the ranch house. Bess already has her boots off and is lying on her bed by the time Nancy and George enter the bedroom. "Are you okay?" Nancy asks. If you don't count the humongous blisters on each of my heels, I'm fine. George glances at the doll, which Bess has propped up on her stomach. That thing totally creeps me out. And after what your horse did, I'm with Bonnie. I think it brings bad luck. It's just a doll, Bess says, rolling her eyes. We should see if we can help Aunt Bet with anything, Nancy suggests. Good idea, Bess agrees. She stands up and winces as she hobbles towards her dresser and puts the doll down. Did either of you bring any bandages? George points to a box next to the doll. Bess grins at George. Must be my lucky day.